Hi everybody, it's Shawn Elledge here with Sales Lead Automation. I'm going to talk today about a tactical approach to building a demand generation engine. So I'm glad to support the Chat Funnels Demand Generation Summit. You know, I was one of the founders of DemandCon, so this topic is very dear to me. In fact, it was a result of my conferences. We had amassed over 50 million contact records, and so I was able to then launch Sales Lead Automation, which is our agency, and kind of practice what I had learned at our DemandCon events. So I love supporting these kind of efforts. Also, this is leading to my development of my first SaaS app, Sales Rocket, but we'll talk about that later. So today I want to focus about the buyer journey, how important that is in developing your demand generation framework, the challenges in demand generation, and then outbound versus inbound, and then how to fund your demand generation engine, because it's a rather big task. So everything starts with the buyer journey. That's understanding who your ideal customer profile is, and then breaking that down into the specific personas at each one of those companies. So a typical persona development we recommend is at least three: an end user, decision maker, and financial authority. Now I understand Harvard will tell you there's up to 16 people involved in any major considered purchase, but it's a little ridiculous to try to build 16 personas out unless you're an enterprise company has the money and the resources to do it. So, but an end user, when he goes through the stages of learn, solve, compare, purchase, learn, I think I have a problem; solve, how do I solve that problem; compare, am I solving the problem the right way; purchase, help me make a purchase decision; and then I added loyalty to the funnel. Show me you appreciate me as a customer. Now, as an end user, they're only going to be concerned about how hard is this product going to be to learn? Is it easy? What kind of support do I get? What kind of training do I offer? Whereas the decision maker is like, okay, is this going to make my team more efficient, more effective? What's the ROI? Am I going to hit bonus? And then the financial authority, he's thinking more like, what's the terms and conditions? What's the escalation policy? Maybe what's the service level agreement? So as you can see, those are three completely different conversations. So that's why you need to have content that's going to support all three of them as they move through the buyer journey. Now, to look at this in a framework perspective, I look at it as a triangle. And at the very top of the triangle is your internal staff and board members. And what do I mean by that? I go, well, you need to understand, what is your company all about? What do you do? And how you do it. In fact, I worked for a company once where the SVP of sales went around the room and randomly selected salespeople and asked them, what do we do? And not one person had the same response. So that's a problem. So you want to start at, what do we do? What do we stand for as a company? Why do we do it? Then next, you want to look at your existing customers. Now, if you're a new startup, you might not have very many customers to do this with. But if you're an existing company and you've been around a while, you probably have a good idea of who's been involved in every purchase decision. And so from there, that will feed your persona development when we reach the bottom of this pyramid, which is your prospect stage. So you want to take a look at that, look at your past records, look at your best customers. Maybe it's most based on profit. Maybe it's based off of a sales cycle. Who was the shortest close that we've had? Then the next stage, you get into influencers. Talking media pundits, analysts, and social media influencers that cover your space. And you're not going to build personas for those people, but you are going to build contact lists and segments for those people so that you can communicate with them and establish a relationship. And then next to that, stage is your partners. If you sell through a partner network or a distributor channel, then what kind of content do you have to help support their ability to sell more of your products and services? So how you communicate with those people is really important. And then ultimately at the end, where everybody wants to go, is prospects. That's really the universe. It's the goal. The problem is, if you don't do the steps above in the triangle, it's inherently too expensive to go directly to the prospect. You really have to get all of your ducks in a row when you're building out the framework. And once you reach the prospect stage, you'll literally be able to map any kind of scenario that you could think of. So if it's an end user at the learning stage, what is it do you want to say to that person? Why do you want to say it? What kind of training materials? What format are you going to share that information? And then what's the goal? What is it? Branding, traffic, lead gen, cross-sell, upsell, reduce churn. But every possible persona, if you walk them through the chart, you can address when you're building your demand generation framework. Okay, now what's the challenge? Well, it takes time, money, content, marketing technology, because you're going to want to automate as much as possible and resources. And so if you're a startup, this is going to be a challenge. Heck, we have some customers that we've been working with for 4 years, and we still haven't completed the demand generation engine. In fact, I don't know if you ever really complete it. I think it's just something that's going to be continually ongoing. So I tell people, well, how do you eat an elephant? Well, one bite at a time. And so you're probably going to have to look at doing some outbound versus inbound marketing, as much as people hate to say that these days. But depending on your market maturity, how long your company's been around, are you a startup versus an enterprise company that's been around forever? Well, then that's going to dictate whether you do more outbound versus inbound. But outbound is definitely going to be the way to go if you're a newer company. Now, over time, that'll change. You'll be doing more inbound, or hopefully you'll be doing more inbound than outbound. But in the beginning, you're going to find it's a lot less expensive and a lot easier to do outbound versus inbound. Plus, you're not putting your destiny in the hands of Google to index your content. It just takes time. So we're going to talk a little bit about email today because, well, it still has the highest ROI, and 89% of marketers use email as their primary channel for generating leads. And again, without profit, nothing's possible. So how do you fund a big, giant demand generation strategy is really important. So we've got to generate revenue now so that we can do that. So what I like to do is segment your lists by tactic. So you want to send mass email and sales automation campaigns to your total market. So they match my ideal prospect profile. Let's say it's companies with 500 or more employees. That's your universe, okay? So we want to send mass mail to those folks, and we want to connect our salespeople to those individuals using sales automation. And I'll get into those tactics a little bit more here. Then out of that universe, who are your top targets? Now you can handpick them. You could maybe do it by revenue. Maybe it's by industry. Maybe it's by most profitable. But at a minimum, you're going to want to separate your top targets. So let's say companies that are 10,000 or larger, those are the ones that we want to put more hands-on approach to when it comes to the building demand. So mass email, how do we do mass email today? Boy, you don't find a lot of companies that will let you do mass email. That's why it's really important. But you have to do it the right way. So in other words, this needs to be a channel where you share best practices and thought leadership. You're not trying to sell someone on an email. You're not trying to generate leads. You're trying to build brand. You will generate leads, but the focus has to be on thought leadership and helpful content. And if you are going to bake in a lead gen program into it, you could do like a 5-to-1 program where I'm going to send out 5 helpful guides or white papers, or benchmark studies, research documents to every one lead gen campaign. You're going to want to send less than 10,000 emails a day. So bake it down. Less is more because you'll have higher deliverability rates, limit the amount of usage of images, and you definitely want to set up automation. Now, there's one tactic that we've had a lot of success with, and that's where the first campaign we'll send to our target market, but we'll have them go to the website to fill out a form to then get the asset. If they don't fill out the form, the next day we automatically send it to them anyway via email. Hey, did you get your white paper? What it does is it does 2 things. It drives traffic to our site so that we notice if they'll visit other pages when they go there. And then the next day, the did you get your white paper guide, if they didn't download that or fill out the form, it automatically sends it to them so we still get the asset in their hands, but they always open up that email. The open rates of those automated campaigns are 60 to 90%. They're crazy high. And that inflates your email reputation so that not all of your mass email goes into the junk folder. Now, a lot of people go, well, I don't want to spam anybody. Well, neither do we. we want to send helpful content. And so spam is really when you're sending unhelpful content to non-relevant contacts. So as an example, we sent over 1 million emails last year from North American, and we've only had 5 complaints. So when you do the math on that, it's a pretty hard argument to say not to do mass email, because it's very effective. Now, if you are going to do a lead gen program, once you hit that 5-to-1 ratio, then we recommend you tie in a retargeting ad or display ads, LinkedIn ads with the same offer, because you're driving awareness to it. Your target market is seeing those ads in multiple locations along with the email. So it's more compelling, and we've seen a spike in the response rates when we do that. Okay, now let's talk about sales automation emails. Now, a lot of you use Lemlist or Reply Mail or Woodpecker, or whatever solution you prefer. Those are campaigns where you basically, or strategies where you basically tie in your email account, connect it to a sales automation program, and that program just runs along and sends one email at a time, one text-based email at a time. And that's why they have such good deliverability rates, is because it's a lot harder to discern whether it's a spam message or a conversational message when it has limited links and it's sending one email at a time versus blasting out 10,000 all at once. And so they're meant to do one thing: generate a response. So you literally can personalize the message however you like on any attribute in the database. So you want to personalize it as much as possible. You want to break the segments down. You want to start testing subject lines. These 3 have been very effective. Introduction ? Which was actually a typo, which is still today one of our best open rates. Reconnect a few days later, and first, who should I address in your 3rd email? Of course, you could create a series of emails that goes on for as long as you like. We've had one customer that did 17 emails in 14 days, but the data suggested that this was the most effective cadence for that company. Now, I'd never recommend doing that many, but it worked. No more than 1 link. You're really not trying to drive someone to the website or to download an asset. It's not really meant for that. You're really just trying to generate a response. So typical messages could be very simple. Hey, here's my company. Maybe you include a link to your company, and that's it. Maybe you want to personalize as much as possible. So if you have any data or attributes on your target market that you can use, incorporate it. It'll just perform that much better. And again, at if I am going to use a link, I'm usually going to use it in the very last step within my sequence. Now, if anyone responds to that sequence, for those of you not familiar with sales automation, it will automatically stop them from receiving any additional messages. That's why they're so efficient and effective. They're really ideal for your universe and to help support your sales executives or account managers, your BDRs. Because it's fully automated. They don't have to do anything. Marketing can easily deploy these on behalf of their salespeople, and it just kind of helps fill their pipeline. But you don't want to do that to your top targets. Those need a more hands-on approach. And that leads me to account-based sales or account-based emails. This is where we will send 1 email to 3 people. So we're copying 3 influencers in the same email all at once. And this is very effective. In fact, it's our #1 lead generation solution today. So how can you do this? Well, this is how we started doing it. We started doing it manually, and it is a manual process. What we'll do is we'll take down our top targets, and we'll sort them by company. And then we'll manually label influencer 1, 2, and 3. And then we'll manually cut and paste these emails to those individuals. Hello, Cheryl, who's SVP of Global Supply Chain. I want to introduce myself because I'd like to see if I can be any assistance regarding your logistics efforts. I'm not sure who's in charge of selecting a provider, so in my pursuit, I've copied Paul Hawkins and Kurt Carino. Now, what it tells the target market is, wow, Shawn's done his homework. He's picked out 3 people that I work with. Also, kind of forces a reply, because Paul goes, wow, Shawn just emailed my boss. I better jump in here and take this. Or Cheryl might say, you know what, Shawn, why don't you talk to Kurt? I'll circle back with him. and see if it warrants a conversation. Because again, we're just trying to generate a response, some kind of interest. Now, these are manually done. That's the only challenge. In fact, even the responses we manually capture in Excel. And we use, like I said, we use a team in the Philippines to do that. So you can hire a virtual assistant to do this for you if you like. Now, there's some other challenges to account-based email. And that is, in addition to just being manual, is the tracking of the opens and the clicks is inflated because you're sending an email to 3 people, not 1. If all 3 open it up, you have a 300% open rate on that email, or it'll show that email was opened 3 times. Sending multiple emails to the same group or account is difficult. It takes a different mindset, especially manually, to do this manually. So it requires a different set of metrics. So instead of did this contact open my email and click and respond, now you're looking at how many clicks and opens and responses have I generated at the account level, not at the contact level. How many meetings we booked, how many opportunities have we generated, and what's the results of those opportunities. Now, out of all of this stuff, what we found is that relevance wins. Hands down, relevance is the way to go. So we were struggling with this manual process, so I thought, you know what? I couldn't find a solution on the market that would allow me to manage this process more efficiently. So I thought, I'm going to build it. So I started to build Sales Rocket last year, and we're soon to go to market. And I'm going to give you a couple of ideas of what we're doing differently than other tools, because you might find this handy, or you might want to try doing this yourself manually if you agree with our thinking here. So when you go to search for contacts, we have 188 million contacts that will be available to you to search. And we give you the option to build 3 kinds of searches. One, that's typical sales automation search, where I'm just sending one-on-one emails on behalf of my salespeople to our universe. And then I've got the account-based emails where, hey, these are my top targets. And then we have a thing called shared experiences, or a shared experience graph. And that's where we have mapped 5.5 trillion shared experiences. So I can go after my same market, but say, hey, you know what? Let me find my ideal prospects that might have went to the same university as me, or worked at the same company, or supports the same volunteer group like Habitat for Humanity or Humane Society. Or maybe they went to, they served in the same branch of the military as I did. What's that look like? Well, when you download that data, like here's a live example. Bobby said, hey, let's go after anyone who went to Indiana Wesleyan University who's in HR at companies with 10,000 or more employees. So when we led with that strategy, like, hey, Bridget, I noticed we both went to IWU, go Wildcats. Also noticed that you're in HR. Hey, I'd love to learn more about you. Or I'd love to see if maybe we might be a fit to have a conversation. For the past 17 years, I've been working with HR professionals just like you. But that relevance and that warm email versus a cold email has proven to be very effective, both on LinkedIn automation programs as well as our sales lead automation programs. Okay, now let's take that same methodology. We could apply it to account-based emails, or we could just do a basic account-based email where now instead of having to go into the spreadsheet manually and flag all my influencers and then cut and paste all these emails and these names, now I can select in our app, give me the contacts I want to send to. Well, this is the Chief Human Resource Officer, Kathleen. I'm going to send the email to Catherine, and then when I copy these 2 people, it's automatically going to insert them into the personalization string. So no more cut and paste. So it's going to make it a lot more efficient and effective for me to develop an account-based campaign. Okay, now we're also doing research by keyword. So we have a partnership with Social Animal, and we're now in the process of integrating the ability to ingest their information on content that's recently been published. So let's say you're in this case, company relocation. Obviously, if someone's moving their company, then chances are they're going to be moving people and assets. And so for North American, that's a perfect example. So now I can reach out to Brian here and say, hey, Brian, I understand you're relocating your headquarters to Plano this year. Caught the article on WFAA.com. love to be able to help you with moving your people and assets. Would you be up for a conversation? And that relevancy really does prove to be very effective at generating some demand for your products and services. Okay, so here's my call to action is, hey, sign up for a free trial of beta salesrocket.io. We hope to go live in the next 60 days. You'll have some access to those tools. It's purely up to you. But you can also do the same principles of what we're doing today manually. Sign up for a social animal account. Get yourself a virtual assistant. Download all the relevant contacts at your top targets and just start manually copying the key influencers in your campaigns. And I think you'll find that it'll generate enough revenue to help fund all of your demand generation efforts. Hopefully you found this helpful. If you need to reach out to me, you have any questions, feel free. Here's my contact information, and love to hear from you. Thank you.